So, what up YouTube? It's Flaherty here. Now, this title might be really different from my other videos, but this is technically true to me because, big secret, I believe in the paranormal. No matter what people say, no matter what science or math says, I still believe that there is another side, besides the living, of course. So, I think in the end, I might tell, one story that I kind of experienced, well, my friend told me was happening and all. Now, do I still believe in the story? Iffy. But, um, well, should I tell it? Yeah, I'll tell it. I mean, it wasn't scary or something, but yeah. Before I start all this, I want to tell you I'm actually pretty sensitive around me. Like, no joke, I can hear things from, like, out of the room. Even if it's a little bit quiet or not, I can still hear it, and I get a feeling. I'm easily able to sense when somebody is staring at me. So, the story I'll tell at the end of the video actually relates with that, one of my senses. Also, this episode make it eerie because it's thundering outside, so I felt like I wanted to say it. Also, when I tell, these are just random stories I found online. But I typed, hold on a sec. Because there is actually some places in America that are scary. So, I felt I would, maybe not like creepypasta stuff in a way, no. But I can find them. Hold on. Let me do this real fast. Nope. Got that. Beep. Yeah, I'll do that. And I thought I'd tell you stories about some haunted places that's actually true. Well, or backed by facts and all. So, if you are easily scared of scary stories, I don't know why you're in this. Just click the X button to get out. And some of these will be pretty graphic, I guess. But again, I warned you, so yeah. Well, let's get started, shall we? Hold on a sec. I'm trying to get a better image of something here. Do this. And like I said, in the end, I will share one of kind of a area where I've kind of experienced something in a way. It wasn't super bad, but if you haven't recognized this picture, well, you probably haven't, but anyway, this place is known as the Waverly Hills Sanatorium back out in Louisiana, Kentucky. Louisville, Kentucky. I can't read. But it is haunted. So this building, I can't remember. I've heard about it, but I don't know where, but yeah. Off to a good start, aren't we? Anyway, the Waverly Hills Sanatorium was opened up in 1910, and it was a state-of-the-art tuberculosis hospital when the tuberculosis outbreak occurred. And it was bad. At the time, the tuberculosis, try to say that 3 times fast, was a pretty deadly disease, and patients would have to be isolated from the public. Any more outbreaks. So, this was one of the most talked about haunted places in the sanatorium. Well, let me rephrase that. One of the most haunted places in the sanatorium is the body chute. And the body chute is where bodies, again, I said this was not going to be, child friendly here, but the bodies of patients who had died from the tuberculosis disease would be dropped. And the rail car would transport the dead bodies from the top of the hill towards the bottom, since the sanatorium is on top of a hill. And I think there's some YouTube videos of people exploring this place since it's abandoned. Anyway, the reason why they were dropped at the bottom of the hill is to prevent patients from seeing the bodies being carried away. Supposedly said to be haunted by some of the rumored 63,000 patients that had died at the hospital. And here are a few of the stories that may or may not be true, but the one was in 1928, which this lady who was at first having committed suicide went by the name of Mary Hillenberg, and she was found hanging from the doorway in front of the doorway in room 502. Because apparently some stories say that she was recently impregnated by a married doctor, and instead it was found that the doctor had staged this suicide after Hillenberg died during the abortion he had given her. There's so many stories, no one knows, but you can also, but anyway, so this place had a lot of deaths. I didn't want to get into too much information. This is just like a little summary. But here's these, what I'm reading is deathly stories that had happened at these places. And surprisingly, you can still visit the sanatorium with reservations, but beware, there is no electricity in the tunnel. And some paranormal experts have actually reported feeling cold shivers and hearing voices making their way down the hill. Okay. Sorry, I have to do this all the hard way, and like, I don't know. Give me a minute. I don't know what I'm doing. Pardon the images I pull up, they're not the best in quality. So, and they're not the largest images, but it's the best I could find. Um, and if you also are like me and to watch, ghost adventures, yeah, then you're in luck. Because I think some of these places are actually where the Ghost Adventures team have actually went to. And Taps, which is another, um, uh, another show, a ghost hunting show. Yeah, I'm a ghost girl. Shush. So hard finding the best images, but oh well. No one's perfect. I've seen one of these as from the name. It reminds me of a character from a movie. That's probably just me though, but it's what I'm thinking. Okay. So that was just, I think there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, there's only 5 pictures, so there's only gonna be 5 stories. Yay! Okay, now. But again, I'll send you a link to this, but the title of this article here was Real Horror Stories from the Most Haunted Places in America. So there's that one. So on to the next story. This picture, like I said, I'm not going to have the best view of the picture, but this is supposed to be the second one, which is Bachelor's Grove Cemetery out in Bremen Township, Illinois. So there's this place that's on the outskirts of Chicago. It's also known as the most haunted cemeteries in the world. It's pretty small, pretty isolated, and it's a graveyard, which was originally the burial place for a so-called immigrant community back in 1844. And it's rumored that supposedly Al Capone and other gangsters would dump the bodies of their victims into the pond, which was next to the cemetery. Although it's never again, like I said, been verified. And also there's known to be Satanists, how do we say that word? That have met in this in this desolate area to perform black magic, which is what they do. Okay, well, my mouse is... What the frick? Pardon me, as my mouse is going through, something. Anyway, this is also supposedly where the mysterious white lady is said to actually show up during the time of the full moon. And there's actually been photographed images of her appearing on the cover of the Chicago Sun-Times back in '91. And ghost hunters have always searched every inch of the cemetery and have reported actually seeing numerous erratic orbs, which believe is supposed to be proof of a ghostly presence, which can usually be mistaken for like a bug or something, or so I've heard. Is it true? I'm not going to verify. And the road to the cemetery has long since been closed due to so much vandalism. And the police fine teenagers and ghost hunters alike for about $100 just for trespassing. So there's not much, scary stories to it, but it is haunted. The next one is the famous Eastern State Penitentiary down in Philadelphia. I've heard so many stories of this place, and I think there's one video of the ghost hunter team Taps actually finding something, running up and down the halls towards their camera. It was pretty spine-tingling, to say the least. Anyway, the Eastern State Penitentiary had opened back in 1829, and it was the first solitary confinement prison. Prisoners were mostly alone at all times, and when inmates were transported, they were even covered with hoods, so they would not be able to see the other inmates. Solitary confinement is believed to have driven the prisoners mad. Overcrowding soon ended the solitary system. The most notable inmate was Al Scarface Capone. That's right. Serving time in his first sentence from 1929 to 1930, prison time in Eastern State Penitentiary was pretty easy for Capone, who had been in Oriental rug, radio, and other fine features in his room. Yeah, he had the pretty boy treatment. Famous bank robbers like William Francis Sutton, and William Blackie Zapolsky were also sent there. Since this penitentiary was abandoned back in 1971, there have been so many rumors of footsteps, eerie noises, and ominous orbs that have swirled around. Like I said, orbs are usually the souls of the dead. Paranormal television shows like Sci-Fi's Ghost Hunters and MTV's Fear have actually investigated the prison. Sci-Fi Ghost Hunters is one I watched. Was one of the clips. I don't know if there's a GIF of it, but if I do find one, I'll show you. Of, like I was telling you, someone like some energy running towards the camera and running straight back. So pretty eerie, don't you think? Well, to me it's eerie, but to anybody else maybe not. I don't know. Hold on a sec. Isn't this fun? I bet y'all don't like me now. Hold on a sec. I gotta click something out here. Okay, so that's that area. Visitors can be allowed to view the glooming cells throughout the year during the daytime at tours, and sometimes via a special Terror Behind the Walls Halloween haunted house. You're able to schedule a tour at the Eastern State Penitentiary's official website. Weird? Probably. I find it weird, but that's just me. Okay, now next is the Lemp Mansion, which is out in St. Louis or New Orleans. I think, isn't it? I can't remember. St. Louis, Missouri, I think. I can't read. Maybe, I don't know. Hi! Krista, stop it! I don't like when you enter my call.
Did I scare you?
You're an idiot. There is actually a spider in Krista's room. I didn't tell her though. Well, she won't believe me, so you never know. No, but there actually is a spider in Krista's room. Ooh. Saw it earlier. Not funny. Okay, anyway. So this building. Anyway, so in this building, the Lemp Mansion, in 1838, John Adam Lemp had arrived in Louisiana, or St. Louis, from Germany. And can you keep it down? Sometimes I feel like she's trying to ruin me. Anyway, unlike most other immigrants, however, this family would soon see success and a lot of tragic suicides and obviously mysterious deaths. The first is back in 1870. The Lem family was the symbol of wealth in St. Louis and owning a brewery that covered 5 blocks. Have occurred was back in 1904 when William Lemp, who was John's son, had committed suicide after the death of his favorite son, who was favorite son 3 years prior. 3 of William's children had also committed suicide. William's daughter, Elsa, had also killed herself in 1920. Her brother, William Jr., shot himself years later when the business went down. And lastly was her brother, Charles, who also shot himself in the basement in 1949. In 1970, the only remaining son, and the only one to die of actual natural causes, had passed away and had his caretaker destroy all of their things, all the family heirlooms. The estate was sold and turned into a boarding house, although many of the boarders were too scared to buy all the voices that they had proclaimed they have heard that may have stayed there for a very long time. Ever since, the mansion had been turned into an inn and restaurant, which has paranormal tours, like murder mystery dinners and Halloween parties. If you actually dare to enter, beware of the Lemp family, who paranormal hunters believe had never left. The Lemp Brewery was also converted into one of the America's scariest haunted houses. I actually might want to go there one time. It looks nice. Who knows? Last on our list is the Myrtles Plantation. This plantation was built actually back in 1796 by Bradford, and was the site of as many as 10 murders. So there's a legend that goes on behind this. Chloe, who was a slave on the plantation, had one of her ears cut off by her master for having eavesdropped on something. I can't remember what, but I heard about this somewhere. So Chloe sought revenge by baking a poisonous cake for her master. Her plan really didn't work out as intended, and she accidentally killed 2 of her slave master's daughters instead. Chloe was then hanged for her crime by the other servants. Chloe and the girls she had killed still actually haunt the grounds of the plantation to this day. Chloe can supposedly be seen with the same turban she wore when living to hide her missing ear. I think there was an episode on ghost hunters that they covered this place. Researchers haven't actually been able to prove that a slave named Chloe had even existed on the plantation, but don't tell that to all the ghost enthusiasts. Today, guests can stay and eat in the same house Chloe presumably haunts. Guest rooms will cost brave souls between about $115 to $230 a night. Guests can also take mysterious night tours and historic, well, which is less scary, tours in the day. So those are the areas that are supposedly haunted. Which is actually interesting because some of these places I remember seeing, so I'm trying to see what else. I'm trying to find something here. So those are all that. I remember once watching on something. I can't remember what. Oh, stories. I've been, trying to find. Now some of the people who tell ghost stories are not always, you know, true. So I found this one site which is Unexplained Mysteries. And I don't know if this will actually be true stories, but I found them pretty interesting. And there's like 93 of them. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to go through a couple, maybe 10, who knows. But yeah. So I'm hoping my mic works. Wasn't clicking right. Anyway, so let's begin. Okay. So I will check out Potato's channel later. Annoying. Anyway, the first story it will be called I Can Hear Someone, which I think was posted back in May 27th, and actually it was this year. So again, some of these stories may not actually be true, graphic evidence and all, but I found them interesting. And this is a pretty short story. And the commercial go away. So this is by Alyssa, who's located in Maryland. Several years ago, in her preteen years, I was having a sleepover with a friend. A male voice said my name very loudly, as if stating a fact. The man sounded as though he were in the room, standing behind me. And, of course, nobody but my sleeping friend was here. A few years later, one of our beloved pets was hit by a car and died. That night, we heard the distinct sound of the dog going down our wooden steps. The remaining pet was asleep on the couch. My mother heard it too, but my dad did not. I told my mom about the voice I heard in my sleep. She told me that it used to happen to her as well, and that someone always died shortly thereafter. After hearing the man's voice as a kid, my neighbor tried to commit suicide. As I was drifting off to sleep, I heard a woman's voice stating my name loudly and clearly, as though she was in the room with me. I didn't recognize her voice. What is this? I'm curious as to whether or not others have experienced this type of thing. I can't seem to just write this off. There were also 2 comments that apparently talked about her story. And I don't know if I want to read them, but I haven't seen. So this person had posted it like in June, and it stated that hearing your name called by someone who is not there seems to be quite a common experience, and it's happened to me several times over my life. Almost 70 years, though. It has been many years since the last occurrence. I've never attached any paranormal cause to it and assume it's a quirk of the brain, a bit like the sense of a sudden shortfall or drop as you're going off to sleep. Both times you experience the voice you mentioned sleep, either being woken up or just drifting off, and I think this points to it being sleep related, or at least the transition between sleep and being awake. The brain is still largely a human mystery. Just accept it and move on. Another person usually would say it's a spirit trying to communicate. Um, what do you guys think in a way? Do you actually think that something is, trying to talk to her, or is just something going on with the brain? Because it's very difficult to think. Because, here's a story that they also posted. Who was also, this story called My Dead Father Spoke to Me is the same, story posted, who commented on, Alyssa's story. So, this one is by Cal. It was also posted that same day, and it's actually located in Alabama. My best friend's father, Austin, died, and I had gotten very close to him, especially the last few years of his life. He treated me like his own daughter since I had lost my father unexpectedly 10 years prior to this. On the day of Augustine's funeral, I went home to a quiet, empty house, and I was very upset and emotional. I sat on the couch with my two small dogs and had me a good cry. I was really missing my father. He was my best friend. I cried aloud to him that I really missed him and so forth. Suddenly, I hear him say to me out loud, "Hey, babe, this is how he always addressed me when greeting me in person or answering the phone." It was very loud, almost an echo, behind me. My dogs went ballistic, hearing him too, and jumped off the couch and ran behind me, barking at the ceiling. It freaked me out so bad I went outside and waited for my husband to come home. I knew it was him, and this tells me there is another dimension where our loved ones are. I assume heaven, and it is just within reach of us. Prior to this, on 2 occasions, someone has whispered my name in my ear, and another time I got a hello. I doubted these 2 occurrences until I heard my father speak to me, and best of all, he sounded so happy. I could hear his unusual happiness in his voice. He was a great, loud, funny man. 2 years after this, I went to see a local psychic who told me that my father's spirit was with me, which I thought was interesting. This has caused me to become more spiritual, and I know this life is nothing compared to the one we get after this one. I was a big skeptic before this. I will never doubt what I heard, especially when my dogs reacted to it. That just confirms it for me. See, now I can believe this one because the dogs also heard it. Maybe the mom heard it, but when she mentioned sleep, uh, it's iffy. This one's called Craig is Here. It's by Howard and it was posted on the 10th of June. This was in Phoenix, Arizona. About 2 months after my best friend Craig died, something woke me from a deep sleep. I turned over and saw Craig standing there in my room, right next to my drum set. Completely startled, I blurted out, "What the bleep, it's bleep, are you doing here?" He looked at me with a very peaceful, calm look and said, "I just wanted to let you know that I'm okay, and I love you." You're not gonna watch it, I'll make you watch it. Why is it good that I don't get the feeling that she's gonna let me do my stream? Blame her if we're gonna be taking forever. Blame her. Anyway, I replied, "Yeah, you're okay?" And he reassured me that he was. Told him I love you too. My girlfriend, who was sleeping beside me, stirred and then asked me, "Who are you talking to?" When I answered Craig is here, she kind of freaked out and told me to stop messing with her. When I looked back over to where I had seen him, he was gone. I had a bit of doubt whether or not I really saw him or if I was just dreaming. Either way, it was very comforting. Months later, I was visiting with Craig's mom and I told her my story. She told me a story of her own. One night, Samantha, who's Craig's 3-year-old niece, came into the darkened living room where Craig's mom was sitting in the dark, quietly mourning her son. "Grandma, what are you doing?" she asked. "Nothing, honey, just go back to bed," was her reply. "Well, Uncle Craig told me to come out and tell you to stop crying and go back to bed." "What?" she responded. Samantha repeated the same words in a more demanding tone. "Uncle Craig said to stop crying and go back to bed." "Where is Uncle Craig?" Samantha had told her, "He's in my room. He comes to talk to me, and he wants you to stop crying." Well, when I heard that Craig was visiting his niece around the same time I saw him, I felt that I did indeed see my dead friend, and I'm so grateful. Aww. There's no way that if that happened at the exact same time, that this is just, a dream. There's no way. But hey, science always likes to, mess up, our logic. Number 4, we saw the same thing. This is also posted on June the 10th. And this is by Kaylee, who is in Pooler, I don't know, actually. Give me a minute. Oh, Georgia. That's what GA means. Pooler, Georgia. See, I don't, I don't hear much about Georgia, so yeah. Okay. So, when I was about 8, oh boy, this is gonna be hard. My best friend moved into the house behind me. It was a huge house built in 1980. When they first moved in, my friends still slept with their parents, and on the first night of staying in the house, they were all laying in bed and they heard footsteps in the attic above the room. So her dad got up, pulled down the ladder for the attic, and looked up there with a flashlight. Nothing. This happened on and off for years. About a month later, only my friend and her mom were home, and they were upstairs getting ready to leave to go somewhere. They had a piano downstairs, and they heard a few keys hit lightly a few times. They thought it was the cat, but looked over at the bed, and there the cat was. I always felt kind of freaked out if I was one of the only ones awake after everyone else had gone to sleep when I was there. I hated going downstairs by myself. Anyway, I was staying over one night and my friend had gone up to go to sleep in her mom's bed. By this time, her parents were divorced. I woke up when she left but fell right back to sleep. Later that night, I jumped out of my sleep. I could move, but Lord, I didn't want to. I saw what looked like a lady dressed in a white gown standing in the doorway. I closed my eyes, hoping it would go away, and when I opened them, she was still there, but it wasn't like a person. I could see if, well, I could see right through her. She had long, dark, wavy hair, and the gown was about calf high. It looked like a nightgown, and she was just standing there looking. I rolled over in the opposite direction and squeezed my eyes shut, begging it to go away because I was scared. Eventually she did, and I ran across down the hall and hopped in the bed with my friend and her mom. I never spoke about that story to my friend or anyone because I honestly thought I was seeing things or going crazy. That was until about 2 years ago. I was visiting and somehow we got on the subject of ghosts. And she laughed and was like, yeah, ever since we moved here, there's always been a presence in that corner by my TV. One day I felt like someone was watching me and I looked over and there was seriously a lady in a white dress. I looked at her and my jaw dropped. I asked about her hair color and dress length, and her description matched mine. I wasn't crazy after all. She said she never felt threatened, just creeped out. I've tried to do research on the house. They don't live there anymore, but I haven't been able to find anything. I'm starting to wonder if it wasn't the house that something occurred on, but more the land or something. The home is in a fairly large neighborhood when Pooler just began to expand the residential area. It's blown up by now. Crazy stuff. Still would like to know what was up with that, though. Wow. That's pretty odd how she never told her friend anything about that. Ooh, trade school terror. This was actually posted, August. Um, oh wait, no, I'm sorry. May, 26th of 2016, 2017. Though, I need to get me a sip of something. Let me know if you guys are actually enjoying these. I'm actually strangely enjoying these stories. Well, to me, it's enjoying, but to everybody else, it might be terror. I don't know. I think we're almost done. I don't know. So this is called Trade School Terror, and it's posted by Caney, and this is located in Sedra Woolley, Wyoming, or Washington. I can't remember correctly. But anyway, back in 1998, I enrolled in the Cascade Job Corps program. Immediately upon arriving, I felt uneasy. The atmosphere was wrong, somehow heavy. Although it was beautifully landscaped with huge, remarkable halls, students all around laughing and happy, I was very anxious. I was only 16 and convinced myself it was just my nerves. My group was shown to our dorm to go unpack and get pretty familiar with the facility. First thing I noticed was inside the dorm seemed almost hospital-like. Very long hallways with fluorescent lights lined the rooms with keypad locks and a community bathroom. I walked into our decent-sized room where there are 3 bunk beds against the walls, along with 3 tall dressers and a small lamp. It felt stuffy and smelled pretty stale and damp. There was one window overlooking the courtyard with steel bars on it. I sighed reluctantly, but unpacked my belongings, ready to make a go of the experience. My first night, it's 2 a.m., everyone is sleeping, and I'm still awake in my bunk bed with my mind racing about the day when the lamp turns on over my head. I turned expecting to see a roommate, but there is nothing. Everyone is still sleeping soundly. My heart dropped into my stomach. After a few minutes, I get up to turn the lamp back off when something outside catches my attention. I looked out the window and, clear as day, saw a young girl in a white nightgown and a young boy in a white nightshirt passing a red ball back and forth in the courtyard. I'm watching in disbelief. When my bunkmate started wrestling in her sleep. I looked over hoping to wake her to see what I was seeing, but when I looked back, they were gone. Scared to death, I climbed back in bed and I stayed up the rest of the night. The experience to myself and tried to put it in the back of my head. The second night, I was exhausted and fell asleep just after dinner. I woke up around 2 to use the bathroom. I left my room and the hallway was dark and the bathroom had fluorescence. And the hallway with the bathroom, this sentence didn't make no sense. The fluorescent lights on the hallway flickered and it felt like someone was watching me out as quickly as I could. I stopped in the hall at the drinking fountain, and just as I began drinking, someone walked up beside me. I was honestly thankful to not be alone. I motioned with my hand just a minute to let the person know I see them and was finishing up. However, when I picked up my head later, I'm alone in the hall. There was no one there. I hurried back to my room. When I got in, the lamp is on and my bunkmate is awake. She looked afraid. I asked if she was okay. She explained the lamp had turned itself on. At that point, I shared all my experiences with her, and she had some of her own as well. We agreed to a buddy system on that night, and that day forward, we never left the room at night alone. Our intake girl dorm hall monitor basically stayed in our room. At night, she would often get out of bed and walk around the room, talking and mumbling to herself, sometimes standing over sleeping roommates for 5 to 10 minutes. The next morning, she didn't remember a thing. I became very ill while I was there, which I attributed to lack of sleep, until one day while walking to class, I became so dizzy when I got there. I had inexplicably developed a severe anemia. I was only there for a month, and I knew I had to leave. The building was an old sanitarium, and that there were actually graves behind our building, and the land and buildings had a gruesome past. I will never go back there. Wow. Jesus Christ. It was so bad that she developed a severe anemia. Basically, she didn't get much sleep. At all. Jesus. I feel so sorry for that girl. Jeez. Next one is someone is on my bed. This is by someone not afraid anymore, and it's located in Indianapolis. This was posted on the 4th of May. And this is pretty short. One night I wasn't asleep or tired or anything, but I had to get up early in the morning, so I went to bed. I turned my fan on, as usual, and lay down. I turn over so the fan doesn't blow in my face. I'm the only one in my apartment. As soon as I turn over, I feel someone sit on the edge of my bed. I thought I'm just imagining this, and then I felt them get up and scoot up closer to the head of the bed. I thought, OMG, what do I do? They again got off the bed and sat right where my arm was. I never looked to see who or what it was. I was too scared, but I remember something my grandmother told me. Her mom saw a ghost once and said, "What in Jesus' name do you want?" And it left. So without looking, I said, "What in Jesus' name do you want?" Bed. And it was gone. Thank you, Grandma, for telling me what to do. Wow. They didn't really clear up if they had any pets in the house. If they did have pets in the house, maybe it was just your cat or a dog trying to say, "Hey, can I sleep with you?" I don't know. So next one, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 left. I'm only due for this one. This one's called Being Told. It's by Baby Ghost 56, and it's in New Brunswick, Canada. Ooh, Canada. Wow, this is a long story. So, I was a married woman with 3 young boys. One an infant, a 5-year-old, and a 6.5-year-old son. I was taking a hairdressing course at the time and would stop at my mother's on the way home for coffee. There was something really bothering me about my 5-year-old son that I tried to explain to my mother that I couldn't put my finger on what it was. Ooh, mother's intuition. This gut feeling became problematic for me to the point of crying, and I just did not know why. For about a month, my mother and I had agreed to go bingo that night. I had to call her to let her know I would have to pick up a few groceries beforehand. My mother's home has 2 stories, each with a phone that had 2 separate phone numbers. When I called there was no answer, but a loud groaning, as if I was listening to an open forest fire with the snapping and cracking of the wood. I was mesmerized by the sound so much that the operator came on the line and asked if I needed assistance. I asked if she could check the number I was trying to reach. She replied with there was something wrong with the line. I panicked. I thought my mother's house was on fire. I looked at the top of the stairs where my 5-year-old stood and told him to make sure your father bathes you before bed. I ran to my car. I was so upset. I drove through stop signs and red lights. When I reached our house, there was nothing. I went inside only to be greeted by my mother with her company. I mentioned about her phone lines. She already knew and said she couldn't call to inform me that she couldn't go to the bingo. I was just relieved. So I went to do my few groceries and decided to do something I had never done before, which was go to bingo by myself, and I did. When I was approaching my home, I noticed a huge plume of smoke in the night sky. It was my house that burnt that day, and I lost my 5-year-old son, the very one that I was so upset about. I was as close to being told as I was allowed to be. Wow. So in a way, she was kind of, you know, her gut was telling her something bad was going to happen, and apparently it did. Yeesh. Praise to her son, that he's up in heaven. So sorry, lady. Next one. The Man in the Hat. This was also posted that same day, and it was by Balance78 in Brooklyn, New York. Pretty small one, too. When I was about 20 years old, something strange happened to me. I had just finished coming from my friend Jose's apartment. I would probably go home at 1 a.m. I'd knock out after that, but this time was different. Uncomfortable. I was tossing and turning, and as I opened my eyes, I could see a tall man from the corner of my eye. He was standing at my door wearing what appeared to be an old school business hat. I was paralyzed. I couldn't move or speak. All I could see was this tall, shadowy man with a hat. Was I dreaming? No. I was very much aware of my surroundings. He or it wanted me to see him. He wanted me to be afraid. Mission accomplished. Shortly after that, my father, who left my mom while still pregnant, decided to pay me a visit. I had probably seen him 3 times, if that, within 20 years. He told me he was dying of liver cancer, and if I could find it in my heart to forgive him. I told him what he wanted to hear, then he thanked me and walked right into the liquor store across the street. I then thought to myself, The man in the hat was probably death coming to visit. Ooh. I don't know about death. I don't know if death actually wears a hat. Maybe. I don't know. Almost done. Just these two to go. Possessed Boombox 1988. So this was posted actually probably April 26th, if I'm right. And this is by Angel525. This is in Santa Ana, Texas. This is my first scary story. This takes place in Santa Ana, California. I was young, about 4, and nonverbal. I also want to tell you I have a great memory. I remember being in a high chair, my 3rd birthday cake, and a plane would make a heart over our neighborhood. When we moved when I was 5 years old, shortly after what I'm about to tell you, I had an old woman come watch me while my parents worked. She lived around the corner and would watch my house. Her hair was completely white, and she brought a boombox with her. At first, I was excited because I thought we were going to listen to music. I was disappointed when she only played religious prayer tapes. I was in my room playing with my toys when I heard the tapes playing. The tapes were in Spanish. I walked down the hall towards the living room. I was behind the couch, and I saw the boombox on the mantel and Senora Martinez on her knees praying. She had her back to me. Shortly after I walked in, the tape began to rewind backwards, and a deep voice in English began to speak to her. It was angry that she was praying. And it did not stop. It called her terrible names and told her she was going to hell. She prayed louder. She prayed louder, and it became angrier. Then the entire house shook. It finally stopped, and she came over to me. She heard my crying. She said a prayer over me and told me if it happens again to hide under a table. She told my parents what had happened and said she could feel an evil presence in our home. My mother didn't believe her, but my dad offered to buy her a new boombox. She said her current one was tainted. They never asked me what happened because, again, Senora Martinez never returned. Last year, I was at my mom's house and we started talking about old times. Somehow my old babysitter came up. My mom said, "Oh yeah, the one whose boombox supposedly talked to her." I said, "Supposedly," in much disbelief. I told my mom what I remembered, and her eyes were wide, and she turned very pale. She told me that was the exact same story Senora told her. At least now she knows the truth. My babysitter wasn't a liar. May she rest in peace. Wait, when they said that, does that mean she died or something? Weird. The last one is called Grandpa's Visit. This was also posted in April 14th, and this is by Scaredy Cat, located in Portugal. I have experience that I would really like to share with you, and I am open to every kind of opinion. 4 years old, when my maternal grandmother was killed in a hit-and-run accident, I could still remember every detail of that fateful night, probably because my granddaughter, and he spent his free time with me. Special bond, and those memories are still very vivid in my mind. My grandparents lived with us, my parents and me, and after my grandfather's death, I grew very attached to my granny. Did I say grandma was killed in a hit and run? I meant grandfather, sorry. On to the story now. When I was younger, my mom had a very pleasant way to wake me up. I was around 11 when it happened. She would come into my room and start gently touching my hair and say that it was time to wake up. One Sunday morning, I woke up and turned on my TV to assist cartoons. A few minutes later, I heard my parents and realized they were up and getting ready to go to church. As I heard my mom heading towards the bathroom and started talking to my dad, and me, being a small brat, pretended to be asleep, expecting my parents to pity me and reconsider taking me with them, so very still. Eyes closed, listening to the cartoons on my TV at the same time. Suddenly I hear my door opening, footsteps coming around the bed that stopped by my side. Then I felt the touch of my hair, but there was no time to wake up this time. Feeling a bit odd because there was no sounds after this, I quickly opened my eyes. Nowhere to be found. And I could still hear my parents talking. I thought it was strange and was a little intrigued, but still thought my mom had come into my room and I just missed her. To avoid being told off, I decided to get up and get ready and leave with my parents and Granny to the church. On our way there, I asked my mom why she had woke me up without saying anything and how she got out of the room so fast. She looked and said, she didn't go there because she saw me getting up and getting ready. Then I asked my dad. He said the same thing. And my granny, and she said she got up very early like usual and didn't go to the upper floor after getting up. Was that all questioning about? And I replied that I must have dreamt it. Of course, I knew better. Right after that thought of my grandfather just popped out in my head, and had this overwhelming feeling come over me. I didn't feel scared, actually. The thought of having him visiting me made me happy. Oh, so sweet. That's all for today. And if you guys like me, doing all this scary story stuff, comment below, and who knows, maybe I'll keep doing it. Yes, I don't know. Don't want to get complaints saying that people are afraid of my storytelling stuff. And it's hard to tell scary stories if you don't have a scary voice, but that's just me. Anyway, if you liked this video, hit that big thumbs up. And also, well, before I forget, I promised you guys I had a scary story for you. Well, it wasn't really scary, but bringing up earlier where I have had an occurrence. Well, it really wasn't much of an occurrence, but it was, I think. So I have this friend of mine, and I can mention her name, but I have this one friend of mine who I grew up with since middle school. And we were always have this, routine of spending the night at her house. And I did, and it might have been my imagination because I liked ghost hunters and ghost adventures TV shows growing up with her mom also, so it might have been that. But both me and her have also said this. I always had to sleep downstairs in one of the living rooms. Next to one was the big living room with the TV where we always play video games. And she always sometimes slept down there too. On the couch. I would always be on the other couch in the opposite room, next door to her. And the couch can usually fold out into a bed, but I always like sleeping on the couch itself. On the bed form though. And there I can also see a clock for the time when I had to wake up. So I'm on my phone, randomly watching YouTube stuff, like I always do before I go to bed, because it helps me sleep. And I start feeling this feeling that I'm being watched. Now, it doesn't also help that there are pictures, photographs, and all that on the walls in that room. And also, it's directly in front of another room and the stairway. That's also near the front of the house. Apparently, when I told this to my friend's mom, she also says, because I got the feeling from the room across from me, which is not much anything except for junk. And it just felt like it was watching me, staring at me, and so I had to literally roll over on the other side and pray in my mind, please stop watching me, please stop watching me, please stop looking at me. And I think later on the night when I actually knocked out, it actually left, because nothing happened to me. So when I told my friend's mom this, she said she'd also been getting the feeling that she was being watched in that same room. And I don't know, because she said that someone in her family died and would always watch over her or something. I don't know. I can't remember the full story. But I did experience that. Sometimes, it wasn't every time I stayed over there. It was like on and off. But lately, it hasn't been doing it. So I'm getting the feeling that the on. Oh, heck, it might even be the cat that they had there. But I know it wasn't the cat then because they didn't have that cat when I stayed over. So that was my scary story. Because it kind of got to me. I don't know. It was kind of odd. And maybe this other one might have been, a little scary. Like, I usually hear things in my wall, but I always just assume it's a squirrel or a bird on the roof being annoying, or rats or something, because it could happen. But that's my kind of odd story, and I may have others. I don't know, but I may. So, anyway, I'm gonna go because I'm losing my voice, and I can't have that. So, anyway, if you like this, again, like I said, give it a thumbs up. and I may do more tomorrow and Tuesday because I got nothing else going on. And also, if you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button because my channel is pretty much random stuff. I sing, I do art, I do reviews of anime or TV shows and fan fiction. Now I might do scary stories. I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I am tired. Your girl Flair here is out. Bye bye. Bye bye.